What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of the podcast. Hello, how are you today? My name is Mitch Corbett, and welcome to the podcast. We have a great guest this week. Her name is Willow Raven. I got connected through Willow through actually just Twitter conversations. She's a huge wrestling fan, and I'm a huge wrestling fan, and a lot of her followers are wrestling fans. And so her Twitter account just popped up in my timeline. I thought she was very funny, easy follow. And then I found out she was a sex worker, and I was like, oh, I'm intrigued to learn more about this. I've been trying to find someone who has an Onlyfans account to be on this podcast for a while now. And shot her a message, and she agreed to be on the podcast. So this is a very fun conversation for me. I had lots of questions because it's such a career change for some people to do that sort of thing. But I love the independence that they get from it and how they get to make their own schedule, their own work life, and they seem to be very happy in terms of being able to be not only like work their own schedule but also be creative with the shoots that they do. And me and Willow talk all about that, and it's a really fantastic conversation. I had a lot of fun talking to her. So that's enough of me jibber jabbering about. Let's get to the conversation with Willow Raven. Cool. So what's going on? How are things?
They're good. Yeah.
I usually start with a preamble, just like getting to know each other sort of thing.
Pardon?
I usually just start with a preamble, getting to know each other sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Things are good. Been a good couple weeks. I'm renovating my kitchen, which is maybe not going as well as I'd like to, but that's okay. But yeah, things are good. How about you?
Yeah, I imagine renovating a kitchen in the summertime with everything being so dry or wet is probably not the most enjoyable experience in the world.
Nothing is drying properly, which is really annoying. Yeah, it's been a bit of an ordeal.
Yeah, so like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on podcast, because like I started I think it was Tyson Dukes was following you, and okay. I was training with him at the time. And then I saw how hilarious you were with your Twitter post and everything. I was like, oh, this chick's hilarious. And then I saw the boobies. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, all right, this girl has like a really cool story and backstory and everything. So like, I'm like, oh, I want to get to know this person, obviously.
Right. Cool.
So, let's dive into a little bit of wrestling, shall we? I got my title belt up. Oh no, nope. Up here somewhere, and all my wrestling merch behind me. Arn Anderson. So like we'll start some wrestling, and we'll talk your career, obviously, because I feel that's a good way to get into it. But like you're a huge wrestling fan, eh?
I am. Yeah, I've been watching on and off since I was a kid. So no one really knows how I got into it. Like no one in my family was into it at all. Like my parents weren't into it. I have an older brother. He didn't care about wrestling. He was all about hockey. None of my like cousins or anything watched it, but I was a huge fan. So I had like little like those wrestle buddies and stuff that I would play with. I would watch it all the time. My like family would make fun of me for it all the time. I wrote a story about how I was going to marry Shawn Michaels when I was like 5 years old, and we were going to get married on Mars, as you do. And I kind of stopped watching in middle school. Started again a little bit in high school, stopped in college because I just didn't have cable anymore, and then got really back into it probably around 2015.
I think 2015 would probably be the best time to get around to it, because like you're seeing the end of I think when was Michaels and Undertaker? I think it was around that time, and that's one of the greatest matches of all time on at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
and so you got to see that, I imagine, and then you get to see the evolution of AEW, the Indies, the Young Bucks, all that fun stuff. So I mean, like New Japan. So like, how much content do you take in? Is it just primarily WWE, AEW, or are you watching like? I know you've been to Effie's Big A brunch show and everything, which is I'm so jealous because I so wanted to go to the one in Toronto that was recently. But like, are you? And I think you talk about GCW a lot. So like, you're into like hardcore, right?
Yeah. So I haven't actually watched WWE since May 2019. I only know that date is because my ex-boyfriend and I broke up, and that's when I moved out, so I didn't have cable anymore. So I had kind of stopped watching WWE for like a few months, and then it was just so much to try and get back into it. And it was around the time that like I think the product kind of started slipping a little bit. And then it was the pandemic. And so I just kind of fell off of WWE, but I got really into AEW. I still haven't really missed a show. Like I'll miss a show and then I'll rewatch it. So been really, really into AEW, and yeah, GCW, huge fan. The local indie scene is pretty healthy. And so I have like that kind of what ignited my love for indie wrestling, all the local shows. And then that got me into kind of more of the American indie scene. A friend of mine was a moderator on Squared Circle on Reddit.
Okay, cool.
And so she was just like a huge GCW fan and like really into New Japan and like a lot of like smaller indies that I had never heard of. So she was kind of like my gateway drug into indie wrestling as well. So like being able to like show off a lot of stuff that I wasn't necessarily like seeking out myself. So it was yeah, a little bit of a combo of kind of local indie wrestling and then my friend.
Take me back to that first live show, because like I've always tried to like, I think the best way to convert non-wrestling fans is to just bring them to a live show, because the best way I can describe it to me personally is like it's like going to see like a Shakespearean play, but you
Right.
get to yell at the actors and boo them at the same time, and they get to interact with you. It's like live theater, but you're interacting with the audience, and it's such a fun, beautiful thing to do. So your first show, how cool was that? Were you mind blown by the interaction between yourself and the wrestlers?
So my first show ever was when I was like 4 or 5 years old.
Let's talk about
And
like when you're the hardcore fan.
yeah, okay. So when I first went to an indie show, it was definitely like not at all what I was expecting. You've seen like indie posters. They're not.
Dude, I've
They're
wrestled on a bunch of shows. I've been through a bunch of shows. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So my expectations were a little low. But it was so much fun. The talent was so amazing. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like I really had spent so much of my life thinking that, okay, there's WWE and maybe a couple other places, but you know, that's where it's done and that's about it. I didn't know that there was this really healthy scene independently, not just here, but like throughout, you know, Canada, the US, across the world. And so it was just really interesting to be able to kind of, yeah, get that interaction. I remember the most indie thing that I could possibly think of happening.
Wait, can I take a guess?
Okay.
All right,
You
so
can't guess it. You can't guess it, but you can try.
oh, okay. Because
Okay.
the most indie thing to me is like when you hold the guy back and the fan chop him.
Oh yes. Yeah, that definitely happened. But so picture we're in a like broken down bingo hall.
Yeah, Legion, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some seniors doing 50-50. And they are announcing the 50-50 at intermission. And the old lady who is selling the tickets went up to pick the ticket. And she's calling out the number. No one's coming up. And then she's like, hold on. She reaches into her pocket and she was the winner of the 50-50. The woman who was selling the 50-50 and drawing the 50-50 won the 50-50.
Get that money. Get that money.
I was like, this is the most carny shit I have ever seen. What is going on? So that was like the moment that I was like, this is hilarious and amazing. And then I got like just really into the talent as well. But it was just like the whole atmosphere of just being like, what is going on here? Like it was just so much fun. And like, you didn't know what to expect. There were new, like, there was like all these like videos and like packages and stuff that I didn't expect to see in like a local promotion. And like, it was just so cool. I really loved it.
Was there a sign at the next show like if she wins again we riot?
I wish. Everyone booed her though.
Yeah, of course. You gotta boo the chick.
Yeah. Everyone booed her, but I
And
wish
she is probably the sweetest old lady in the world.
I don't know. I don't know about this lady, to be honest. No, I don't know.
Yeah, those shifty eyes, like a
Yeah,
Disney villain of some sort.
exactly. Yeah.
So like you've developed a following, I think as a wrestling fan and as the term afraid sex worker, is that it? Or it
Yeah.
is okay. So like when you're a sex worker and you comment about wrestling, I noticed on your Twitter feed, uh there's a whole thing where like, oh, you're not into wrestlers, is that correct?
Well, I don't know about that exactly.
But in the sense, like I've been following you for a while, but like there's a whole debate of I mean not a debate, but like, I want to know, is there any like connection between the two worlds? Like, are a lot of your fans wrestling fans and sex and fans of yourself and your pages?
Yeah, I have a lot of my subscribers are wrestling fans, and I think it's just that they find me through wrestling Twitter and then kind of like interact with me there and then want to support me in another capacity. So there's definitely a lot of overlap in that way. And it's funny, like not necessarily with like how I interact with fans or anything, but like I've talked with some of my wrestling friends about how similar sex work is to wrestling in the sense that like we both have personas that we kind of have that are public that are kind of different from our personal personas. It's more of like your personality, but like heightened to 11 a little bit. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like needing to promote yourself and like constantly be doing promos and like getting your name out there and like doing the same type of like audience engagement, because a lot of wrestlers, especially indie wrestlers, get popular by interacting with their fans and getting those relationships built. And so it's very similar to sex work. Like a lot of the people, like anyone can find boobs on the internet. Like there's so many free tits everywhere. But what typically I find gets people to subscribe and at least renew their subscription is the personality behind the person who is running the site. So in that way, like the engagement and the character and like the persona and all these things are kind of like very similar to like a wrestling persona in that way.
And I imagine that like in the same way that, as a wrestler interacts with their fan base and and in same realm, like I totally agree. Like that's why I want to have this conversation, because like
Yeah.
there are the parallels there.
Yeah.
How do you, because you're based off of like, putting yourself out there to interact with people. How do you build that wall to where it gets too, I don't want to say creepy, but like too like, maybe a tad too much sort of thing?
Right. Yeah, so I try to like not say anything that's necessarily like too personal most of the time. I'm pretty open. I think people think that I'm a lot more open than I am
Yeah,
because
you tweet so much. Like you're a
I,
very open book, just like myself.
yeah,
Like I get it. I get it.
yeah. I tweet all of the time. I'm constantly on my phone. But I also like I do open up about my life quite a bit, but I'm very particular about what things I actually do share. So I try to like, I don't typically talk about my family or anything like that. I don't talk about like my past work most of the time. Like I'll kind of mention it a little bit, but not like go too much in depth into it. I don't really talk about my friends other than my friends who are within
Also
the
workers,
world or who are workers. Like you'll be
workers,
very
wrestling workers. It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
same.
yeah,
It's the same.
exactly.
It's so cool.
Exactly. Like I don't even post my real life friends on my Instagram. I am very like protective of them just because they're not sex workers. They don't want to like necessarily be followed by like a bunch of like horny dudes on the internet.
Well, so like so that's the thing, right? You're very open. You have a very big following. You're active on Twitter all the time. Like I personally, I don't understand how someone is able to think that that's reality, if that
Right.
makes sense. But then they also push to like get to know you more and everything. It's like how like it's such a weird boundary to like I feel like you probably deal with people crossing that line
Yeah,
all
I've
the
definitely
time.
had people people who sometimes forget that I'm a fantasy and that people, pay to interact with me in some capacity. Like I'm very open. I like chatting. I do vanilla chats for free. I don't care about charging for that. I just like interacting with people and getting to know them better. But any kind of like sexual talk has to be part of work. But yeah, I've definitely had people who kind of push the boundary, try to like find out where I live, try to find out where I'm going to be next, and like try to show up there, that kind of stuff. And that's all part of the, I guess, risks that come up with sex work. Because you're building a fantasy, sometimes you're really good at it and you're very good at your job. And so people think like, kind of like when people fall in love with a stripper and they're like, right. Like they said that I was cute though. Like I'm not like the other customers. You know what I mean?
It's like, honestly, like when I was like dumb as fuck, like 21 years old and everything, I definitely fell for that trick way too many times.
Yeah.
But like, hopefully when you grow up, you realize, oh no, it's a thing, it's
Yeah. So it's just like I have my issues and my problems, just like everyone else. I am not infallible, but I can pretend to be. So I try not to post too many of my like negatives most of the time. I'll post about like my stupid kitchen and things that don't really matter. But I try to be more cheery and stuff like that, just because I'm like, no one wants to hear like the sex worker being like, it's like life is hard. Now show me your dick. Like it doesn't work as well in that dynamic.
But on the flip side though, like when you do post about your kitchen stuff, and I commented on your post earlier about Pinterest and YouTube, how cool of an experience is that for like people to be so encouraging for you to want to help you and like just give like just advice or like, hey, try this, it might work, it might not work. Like that's gotta give me a kind of cool feeling.
And I've had people who often ask me like, what do you do with like some of the like weirdos or like people that are really mean or
I
things
literally
like
just asked that question.
yeah. Oh, yeah. But like I've been so lucky that like the majority, like 98% of the people that I've ever interacted with are so great. Like they make me feel so much better about myself and like my surroundings, and like are so helpful. Like I know a lot of people really like my cat.
Thanks.
Banks, he's
Yeah.
great. He's wonderful.
I'll show you my cat real quick, just so
Yeah. Hi.
Chester.
Oh. Like no.
Sorry for the viewing audience. That's the camera movement.
But yeah, like it's Binks's birthday in 2 weeks basically, and I've had people buy him gifts for his birthday already and stuff. And like when I was in Dallas, our flight got delayed, canceled, and so we ended up incurring all these charges for redirecting our flight costs and our hotel and things like that, and food for the extra time that we were there. And I had like subscribers sending me money to cover the cost of the hotel and things like that, which was just so sweet. Like definitely just people who are genuinely so like supportive. Like whenever I have like an issue, like I had all these things going on with the border or like my kitchen renewal and stuff, or like any like life questions or anything, people are just so like quick to be helpful. And like those NGL things, those like anonymous questions, I'm always expecting to be like, I'm gonna get some really mean stuff, and everyone's just so supportive all the time, and they're just like, you're so lovely, we really like you. And I'm like, stop.
I think that's the beauty of like both like sex work, wrestling, comedy as well, is that like the majority of it is very positive, encouraging. We want people to succeed at the work because I always say they're doing the damn thing. They're doing what they love. They're doing the work that they want to do.
Yeah.
And when people like are negative towards it, it's like, well, you should try it. I mean, it's fun being on, it's way more fun being on the positive side than the negative side, man. It's trust me, it's way more fun. You make more friends, more conversations, some free beers, you buy around, I buy around, it's just a way better experience.
Yeah.
And so like when you're traveling around, because you've been to a few wrestling shows, do you tell them what you do, or is it kind of like a floating conversation? I imagine most of the reactions like, because we're in 2022 now, everyone's probably like, oh, that's dope, make your money. Like,
It's interesting. I'm a lot more open about it when I'm on the road. Mainly because a lot of my, like I said, a lot of my subscribers are wrestling fans. And so a lot of the times when I'm at shows, I have subscribers there. Especially at GCW shows, I usually have like a handful of people throughout the show come over and like ask for a photo or say hi or like something like that.
now, does
Um,
having the different haircuts, does that they spot you through the,
Oh,
the
they
hair?
definitely saw me pretty quickly, and they're just like, "Hey, Willow, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." It's hard to blend into a
Oh,
crowd
you
when,
want a picture with me? Oh,
yeah,
do I come with the car? I don't know.
right. But yeah, it's so I usually am pretty open there because most people there already know what I do. It's either people that I'm meeting from Twitter or like Instagram or something that they already know me as Willow Raven. I'm not as open about work at home.
Obviously, yeah.
Um, like my parents know, my dad and my stepmom know, my stepsister knows, my brother does not know. He probably will never know if I can help it. So there's definitely layers of like when I feel comfortable being more open about what I do for a living. Most of the time I just say I work in social media, which is not a lie. I do a lot of social media for my work. And there's always the joke about just saying that you're an accountant, which I always kind of joke about because my dad is an accountant. And so whenever people are like, aren't your parents mad about what you do? It's like, no, because I followed in his footsteps. So it's completely fine.
Stupid, sexy accountant.
Right, exactly.
So like, all right, so we'll finish up the wrestling talk and get more into work after this. But I want to know what are some of your favorite wrestlers, favorite matches? Like, let's see what you
Yeah.
got
So
as a fan.
yeah, my favorite wrestler of all time is Shawn Michaels. I love
Obviously, yeah.
him. I also like Undertaker is way up there. I actually like he walked by me in Dallas this year.
Yo, how
Like
tall is he? Legit.
so tall. But like he was just so imposing. Like we were outside of a hotel and he walked by with his wife. They like walked out of like this huge SUV and I was like hanging out with some of the WWE crew and he was like walked by and was like, "Hey," and I was just like I immediately started crying. And I was just like, "I'm so sorry. I'm marking out so bad." And the guy, like one of the guys was just like, "No, yeah, man. Like, I get it. I get it. It's the Undertaker." And I was like, I'm really sorry. This is really embarrassing." And he was like, "No, yeah, I get it. I freaked out too the first time." And I was just like, "Okay, good. It's fine." So that was huge for me. Like, I remember being a kid, like pretending to be Taker all the time. But like,
Does he have that aura around him?
oh, absolutely. Like I've met celebrities before. I've met wrestlers before. Like I'm not one to get like I used to work in the music industry, so I worked with a lot of musicians and stuff. And like I'm not one to get starstruck. I usually like can keep my composure really well. And I even if I am a little like excited, I just kind of like am pretty chill and they can't tell. And then I kind of like text my friend really quick about it. But I completely lost all cool within a millisecond of him walking by me. Like it yeah.
I
But
had, I had the same reaction when I met. I didn't cry, but I was very like flabbergasted when I met Ricky Steamboat for the first time, and he was such a sweetheart. And he let me put it as a Hall of Fame ring on, and I was like, oh my god, this is Ricky Dragon Steamboat. And he was so handsome for his age. I was like, god damn, Ricky, what the?
man, I would lose my mind if I could put on one of those rings. I'd be
I
like, "Oh,
mean, there he is,
wow."
right there. That's where I. Nope, this way. This thing over here. This way. I can't bend that way.
It's fine. It's fine." Um, but yeah, as far as like more contemporary wrestlers go, I love Cole Redrick from GCW, well, and other promotions, but like that's where I mainly know him from, just like a deathmatch guy, and like also just like regular indie wrestling, just so awesome. I love him. Been really liking Mike Bailey a lot. Love like Bianca Belair, even though I don't really watch WWE that much. Every time I see her, I'm just like blown away.
I gotta tell you something about WWE. I just watched SummerSlam and I watched the Raw. Give it a try. It's getting better. I'm very
That's,
surprised by it.
I
That
have
Bianca
been
and Becky
very,
match was something else.
I've been very, very curious to see what the changes are going to be like over the next few weeks, few months. I did hear that SummerSlam was pretty good, so I want to go and watch it. I was out with some friends, so I didn't get to watch it that night, but I definitely kind of want to get back into it and see what things are brewing over there.
The thing with Raw, right, is that it's 3 hours long on a Monday. Like it's the
Yeah.
first work day of the work week. I just like, can they give like on Tuesday mornings, can they give us like an abridged version of it? Maybe like that's what I
Yeah.
want. Like I want like an hour and a half condensed version that I can just watch in the morning because I can't do
Yeah.
3 hours. It's
No,
almost
well,
impossible.
absolutely. That's why I largely stopped watching. I mean, like when you get into Raw, it's 3 hours, SmackDown's 2 hours, NXT was 1 hour, then got to 2 hours,
And then you got
and then
NXT
like
UK, and then
exactly
Level
like
Up, and
there's
AEW, and Impact. If you're an Impact fan, like there's and New
exactly
Japan Pro.
it's just there's so much, and even GCW now is doing like two
Fucking
pay-per-views.
MOW too. I mean, it's insane.
It's so much to catch up with. And so I had to kind of take a step back because I couldn't keep like, at least when I had like the DVR and the cable and stuff, I could kind of just like quickly go through some of the matches I didn't really care about, or like something like that, or like if I had seen the highlights already and I didn't really want to watch all of it, I could kind of zoom through some of the stuff. There's no way that I can watch like 20 hours of content in 1 week and still have other things to do. Like, I don't know how some people do it.
Well, they don't have other things to do. That's the thing, right? Let's be honest. They don't have other things to do. That's why they can watch all the comment and tweet about every single thing that's happening on the shows.
Yeah. It's funny. I had someone recently say that I watch too much wrestling, and I was like, I actually think I don't watch enough wrestling.
I would agree. The only thing I try and watch religiously is AEW just because it's so new,
Yeah.
so fresh. Like I try and do that and that's my hump day, like Wednesday, have a few beers,
Yeah.
watch wrestling. I'll try and catch the odd New Japan thing, but it's hard, man. It's fucking
Yeah.
hard. I did actually get to go see Blood and Guts live though. That was so cool.
Fun. That's
Oh,
fun.
so much fun. It was me and my best friend and his wife, and it was his son's very first show. And I got them a Pentagon mask when I was in Mexico. And
Yeah.
as soon as Pentagon came out during one of the dark matches, he's like, give him a mask, mom, give him a mask. He put it on.
Oh.
And he was the little kid. He was like, I think he's 8 or so. He was like chanting along, like, shut the fuck up.
I will say, children at wrestling shows are like my favorite
So
because
good.
they have zero filter, and they will they will just yell out the wildest stuff. Like there was a kid once, I will still remember it. Like this guy got hit, and he was like, "That's what you get for not eating all your broccoli." And I was like, "What? Like that's the most wholesome insult I've ever heard. Like that's wonderful. I love it. So much joy."
So I'll tell you this story. I used to wrestle, right, back in the day. And I wrestled in Newfoundland, and I was the mainlander. I was the main man from the mainland, and I had I had green yellow top and green pants with yellow or gold. And some kid yelled out, "You look like a pineapple." And I yelled back at him, "Yeah, and they're great on pizza." And he yelled back, "Yeah, I agree." And I was like, I go back in the ring and they clothesline this guy now. I was like, how do you shit talk a kid that agrees with you? It was so confusing. I was like, I had nothing. I was the heel. I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, they're great. I love going to like over 19 shows and stuff like that because it's a very different type of atmosphere. But at the like family shows where there's just like kids yelling things out, like it's also like they just get so into it because they still think it's real. So there's just that like kind of magic that happens. Like they're just so innocent. And it's just like I remember like thinking like the first show I went to, I cried because Papa Shango came out, and I was so scared of him because it was like the lights were off, there was like a smoke machine, like there was like all of these things, and like I burst out crying. My dad had to take me out of the arena and never let me go to another show after that.
Oh no, come on.
And
That's the emotion that you want from the crowd.
I know, but that's the thing, right? It's like I remember really thinking that these people were like getting hurt, or like that they were really fighting each other and like really breaking up friendships and things like that. And it's just like the reason I love wrestling is because of the storylines and the characters, and like to see someone be that invested like makes me be more invested into it too.
Yeah, my first like WWE show was in Owen Sound, Ontario. And
Okay.
my favorite wrestler of all time is Eddie Guerrero. And this is before I knew what heels and faces were. I just loved him. And this is when he had turned after Ray, and he was like the I'm your poppy thing was going on. So I brought a sign to the show, so that Eddie, I'm your son, or Eddie is my poppy. And there was two older ladies like saw my sign, like, oh, be nice, because I was waving at Ray because Ray was in the ring. And the two ladies like, oh, just treat him nicely. He's a nice young man.
Oh
man, I love wrestling. Love. It's when people like trash it and say it's fake, they've never been to a show. They never got to enjoy like the crowd atmosphere, the camaraderie between the fans, the wrestlers. It's just such a unique environment.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's also, I mean, the argument's been done so many times about how, like, yes, okay, it's fake, just as fake as like a Marvel movie, but that doesn't take away any of the entertainment value of it. But I think it's also just like these wrestlers and these athletes are like literally putting their bodies through so much, regardless of like whether or not they're trying to hurt each other. They're trying to keep each other safe, but they are still slamming each other into wood. They're still like slamming each other into like barricades that are made of metal. They're still like going through doors. Like, these things are still hurtful and like painful, even though, you know, it's fake. So
like, trust me, the first time I ever bumped, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
The worst was hitting the ropes. So the ring I trained in was actually like it was cable, not like rope. And it was like my back was the color of your hair, to be honest. Legit. It was purple and blue and red, and it sucked. And I remember coming home from a training session one time, and I was like, hey man, can you throw some Rub A35 on it? Terrible idea. Worst mistake of my life. Just pain like you would not believe. Oh, terrible. All right, Raven, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back to you, and we're going to talk more about your actual work and everything, okay?
Sounds good.
Hey guys, we're doing a different thing with this podcast. We're just separating it into two different parts, and we're going to keep on going forward. So I just want to take this quick time to kind of shout out my other podcast with my friends Keely and Justine. It is called To Dick or Not to Dick. That is the podcast. Justine became single a few months ago.
Thanks for the dick. So far, it's been good. It's brought out a lot of weird people, some people that are very pushy. They want to know right now about what we think about their dicks. They have no patience.
And she was getting a bunch of unsolicited dick pics. So I was like, hey, why don't we just, judge these dicks and make a podcast out of it? And Keely heard about it. She's like, I want to judge dicks too.
For a second.
And now we have this podcast, and it's hilarious. It's a bi-weekly or weekly podcast depending on our schedules, and it is a blast.
Hey guys, do you guys want to start?
Yeah.
I'm a fucking idiot. So this is what you get.
So if you guys are looking for a good laugh, if you guys are looking for some funny people to judge dicks, check it out. To Dick or Not to Dick podcast, available on Spotify, Stitcher, and all other places where you can find podcasts, and YouTube. I had such a good run going too. I had such a fucking very inspirational intro. All right, so we're back with Willow Raven. Thank you again for coming on the podcast. I've been having such a good time talking to you. Let's talk more about your work, because I have so many questions, because I don't know much about that lifestyle. And I think it's so inspirational because I've seen you mention before that you were working like a 9-to-5 job, and then you decide to quit that, and now you're becoming a sex worker, and you're working on your own time, and you're putting in the work with social media, with all of the Onlyfans and what other stuff is there, Fansly, social media, watch-alongs, that sort of thing. It seems like it's a lot, but it seems like stuff that you love to do. So like, take me through that decision to like and your love of it, to be honest. Like, how do you fall in love with like this kind of work, and like your decision to be like, oh fuck, I'm gonna do it myself?
So I had started working as a content creator probably, so it was March 2021, so just over a year ago. I actually had a wrestler who was the one who convinced me to do it.
Do we want to name names?
I'm not going to name names.
That's why I asked first.
Yeah, but it was someone that I knew from, you know, my real life, and they were just like they were always very pro sex work and always like kind of tweeting about supporting sex workers. So I was like, if I got like an OnlyFans, do you think people would sign up? Do you think that I should do one? Like, would you sign up? And he was like, absolutely. So he was my first subscriber, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself a 1 month trial. Backstory as well, I was on stress leave from my work. I really was not having a good time at work.
Oh, I feel that, trust me.
Yeah, it was a lot. The job was already really stressful. Like there was one time I didn't have a single day off for 6 weeks.
Damn.
And so I was already really stressed out. Then the pandemic happened, it made it even worse. So I took about 3 months off for stress leave. And so while I was on leave, I was like, well, I have all this free time. I need to try and find a way to like make some money and do things and stuff like that. So I decided to be a content creator. And I told myself I would give myself about a month. If I got 50 people or 24 people in the first 24 hours, I would give it a full month. And I got 50 subscribers in about 12 hours. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something here.
That's double.
Yeah. And like one of the things that like had always stopped me from, you know, getting into sex work wasn't, you know, the usual reasons that people give, like, oh, I could never do what you do because like, you know, what if people would judge me for it? Or like, you know, I just think it takes so much confidence. Like I already took a bunch of thirst traps all the time. Like I did all that. Like I like, you know, didn't love my job in the first place. My parents are always like pretty supportive. Like I wasn't worried about, you know, my dad like not talking to me anymore or anything like that. The thing that made me nervous about starting was that I didn't think that I would have the creativity or the time to be able to make posts all the time. I was like, how am I going to create content at the level and the frequency that I think people would want? And that's what really stopped me from doing it. But then I started and I just immediately fell in love with it. Like I love the amount of creativity that I have with it. Like I can not only in the shoots themselves, like I can dress up how I want. I can do all my makeup and hair in different ways and like shoot in different places. Like sometimes I'll rent out Airbnbs or I'll do like specific themed shoots and things like that.
Oh,
but I
you're
also
really like putting the work in, right? Like I
I
had no idea that was a thing that you. Wow. Okay.
yeah,
Continue,
like
sorry.
I
Decided that's
I
great.
do like so in a typical week, I typically try to do Monday to Friday. So I do admin work on Mondays and Wednesdays typically, which is, you know, queuing up all my posts for the coming week, you know, getting all of my listings done, all my social media graphics and things like that. Doing social media is a lot of work, doing a lot of like TikToks and things like that I'm trying to learn how to do. And then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I usually shoot content. I'll do anything from like 200 to like 500 photos in a day, and I'll get probably about 30 of those that are actually usable for me. And so I do all of that, but then it also gets me to be creative in other ways. So like I said, graphic design is just something that I never really like thought I would use very much. Like I used it seldomly like in my jobs and things like that, but like I'm getting to like create little graphics and menus and things like that I want to do. Social media is a huge part of it, and being able to like run my own pages and like figure out what my brand voice wants to be and things like that. Being able to write my blog is something that I really love. Like I used to be a writer, and so being able to do that again makes me really happy. And like finding just these different ways to be able to incorporate all of my passions and like hobbies and things like that within work and actually making it something that I get really excited about is so much fun, and something that I didn't have that kind of like creative capacity before. So that's been a really nice change of pace, and like being able to have that flexibility and independence of like deciding what I want to do all the time.
Dude, I'm so happy for you. That's so cool. That's so very, very cool. I'm so happy for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So how, like, because I have friends And like I jokingly say, like, and they're struggling, and they're like with the creativity and with their like money. And I jokingly obviously have said, I think many people make this, and you posted about you should start OnlyFans, but like it's not. And when I say it though, I'm kind of half serious because like I want my friends to be able to make money and not have to work that 9 to 5 bullshit sort of thing. Like
Right.
I feel like taking control of your own body and taking control of your own sexuality and taking control of like, you know, your life in this form is such a freeing concept.
Yeah.
And you see these women do this, and like they're so confident, they're so pretty, they're so beautiful. And maybe talk to me about a little bit of that, how like how kind of a cool of a community the sex worker community is.
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. Like I haven't been able to, have as much success as I have without the amount of support that I've had from other creators. I also have a lot of friends who are like in other aspects of sex work. So I have friends who are escorts. I have friends who do specifically camming. I have a lot of friends who do findom and femdom stuff, dominatrixes. And it's just like being able to discuss, like we actually have a group chat of probably about 20 sex workers from across the world. So like some of the girls are in the UK, a lot of them are in the US and Ontario. And just being able to like bounce ideas off each other, but also being able to like
Shoot the shit, maybe.
Well, that for sure, but like it's especially for support. Like we will often get messages from one of the girls being like, I'm really struggling with creativity right now, or like I'm really struggling with like motivation. How are you guys like doing? What's a tip that you have? Or like today we had one of the girls was asking about streaming. So a few of the people who do a lot of streaming were helping and like helping set up the OBS, because that's the other thing is like people don't realize how much of an expert you have to be in all these different fields, like social media, marketing, like
photography, video,
photography, editing, all these things, and like tech stuff. Like you have to be able to know how to stream and like set up all these things, and like it's so much different, so many different aspects of the work that I think people don't necessarily realize how much of it plays into the work. But like back to your question, like it's just been so helpful to have these people who like some of the creators have been sex workers for like a decade, and have so much knowledge and everything to be able to help out with any question that you have. But it's especially for just the moral support, because there's no one else who really understands the issues that come with this job. And so being able to have a group of people that you feel comfortable being able to express how you feel and know that they feel the same way or have experienced the same things and kind of can help you through that is invaluable. Like it's fantastic. And there's even, I'm in another group chat of sex workers specifically in my area, which is awesome. So we've had like little meetups with some of the girls and things like that. And like I've done some cam sessions with some of them. I have a shoot scheduled with 2 of them in like a couple weeks. So it's so nice to just like be able to have some people that you get to meet and bounce ideas off of.
It's got to be so like in wrestling, like we'll always like comment on each other's like wrestling gimmicks and stuff like that. So I imagine it's the same thing. Oh, I love your outfits. I love your hair. Like it's got to be such a fucking like cool experience to go. And like I love that aspect of it, because like it does seem like, so like in terms of having what you're doing now, your mental health was not good before doing the 9 to 5, and you're doing something where like the majority of the population are like, mere, no, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. You should be working at an office, being an assistant at a dental office, blah, 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 bullshit. But I imagine doing something that you love, where you get to be creative and like, listen, the skills that you are learning could get you a job at any place that you want to, but you're doing stuff you love. So like, how much happier are you doing this sort of work?
Oh, absolutely. Like infinitely more happy. Like, I mean, I still like, I have depression and anxiety, and like, that's not a thing that I can just like snap away with a new job.
Wait, are you telling me all the commercials are lies, that I can't just go see someone or get some
outside?
I can't
just breathe.
Dash on that, I swear.
Yeah, surprisingly, that doesn't work. But being able to, have a job that is flexible with my mental illness, like being able to, if there are days that I can't get out of bed, I can take that time and recharge myself and be able to be in a better place to be able to make work happen in 2 days than if I was at an office where I would have to still go in. I would feel bad if I took a day off. I, was letting the team down if I wasn't there, kind of thing, if I was in a bad mood or if I couldn't get through my job just because I couldn't get out of bed that day. Being able to have the flexibility, like I schedule my posts probably about a month in advance, because it gives me such a buffer that if I do have, like not even necessarily that, I had COVID a few months ago. And so I couldn't make content for like 2 weeks. I was just way too weak. There was no way that I was going to be able to like look sexy and like
there wasn't like a COVID market you could have reached with like
I know, right? Like too bad no one was into like someone just like shivering on their couch.
Oh, maybe, who knows? There's seems to be a cake for everything these days.
Yeah. I didn't try, so who knows, but yeah, so it's just
watch like, Willow sleep.
I'm sure somebody would pay for that for sure. But yeah, so it's just like it gives me the opportunity to like take care of myself when I need to. And it's also like I'm a night owl by nature, and so I have a really hard time waking up early. So like waking up at 7:00 in the morning just to get to an office at 9 a.m.
sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks.
So now I wake up at like 9:45, and yeah, I don't start my day until like 11 a.m. But I'm also working until like 9 p.m. But I'm comfortable in that, and I'm doing the work at my own pace and when I want to, and so it's a lot more of a healthy work-life balance for me.
And like that 9:45 a.m. wake up call and working at 11, that gives you enough time to like start your day the right way, checking, whether it being like, having a breakfast, having a nice shower, taking your time to get the day started. That's so healthy.
Well, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. The first thing I do when I wake up is stay in bed and check my internet for like my social media for like half an hour. And I check, all my socials and my 2 pages, which is Onlyfans and Loyal.
That's your work though, right? So, I mean, that
so
makes
technically
sense.
I'm doing work. Like I'm answering all these questions and emails and things like that. Those are emails to me. But I'm doing it from like the comfort of my bed. And then I get to do like my actual work after I've had a good meal. I've maybe like gone to the gym and then like showered, put my makeup on, and then I get the day started. And I don't feel rushed. I don't feel like, oh my God, I didn't get to eat today. Like whatever. If I don't feel like doing work that afternoon, like I can take the time off. Like I work hard enough on the other days to be able to balance out if I need a day or two for a mental break or something like that. And I still try to do like a Monday to Friday kind of schedule just so that I have a couple days off in a row just to be able to like recharge. But yeah, the flexibility of it has been huge for my mental health. And like, obviously medication and therapy is also vital. But yeah, being able to not be in a job that makes me so miserable that like I don't even want to go in anymore, and instead having a job that like sometimes I stay up until 3:00 in the morning doing work because I'm so pumped about it that I'm like, I have to get this idea out. Like I have to write this blog. I have to do this. Like I can't sleep because like I'm just so excited and I just want to get it out. And that never happened before.
Yeah. So like when you're working, right? Because you make these videos and there's so many different categories of what you do. And you bank all the content. So my question was gonna be, how do you my fucking question was so stupid. I'm so sorry. My question is gonna be like, so like when you're doing like your work, right? And like the idea is like, oh, you're supposed to like have an orgasm during this video, but you can't get there. So like, do you take time off and just reshoot it, or like is it just like, how does that work with the workflow that you have?
Yeah, so I luckily am very quick to be turned on. So So it works well for this job. It doesn't usually take
Shawn Michaels, 1993, and
right. Yeah, like I usually don't have much of a hard time performing.
Okay.
But like I said, like if I'm not into it that day, I'm just gonna do something else. Like sometimes if I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be a shoot day, I'm not feeling it. I'm like in a bad mood, or like maybe it's raining outside and it just like isn't good lighting or something like that. Like I'll just take that day, and instead of doing my photo shoots, I'll just do my admin work that day instead. So I'll get my posts queued up. I'll work on my like playlists, or I'll work on my social media. I'll work on other things that graphics or whatever, editing, other things that would take up my time another day of the week, just so that I'm not losing a day necessarily, but just if I'm not feeling like being sexy on camera that day, there are other things that I can do work wise. But yeah, so I
sweatpant
usually
days, as we call them.
pardon.
Sweatpant days, as we call them.
Yes, exactly. We love those in this house. And so yeah, I just kind of like do it when I feel like it. Basically, like right now I have content like banked probably until about mid to late September into October, and
Okay.
we're early August right now. So I do usually like 6 or 7 photo shoots per day, and or videos. So yeah, it's a lot.
So let's talk about the production value too, because I'm a video producer. So I know how difficult it is to like kind of set lighting, set up cameras and everything. So this all only you? And so you have, when you're doing a photo shoot, or if cameras like set on timers for photographs, lighting's all you, like you don't have anyone come in and like, you don't outsource the material, the work for photos and video?
No, so I mean sometimes like I've worked with other photographers, like I think maybe 3 or 4 times over the past year and a half. I've worked with a photographer, but those are more just like a nice little treat that I get to do. Like one of them was like with a friend of mine. So we went in and like shot with a photographer. Another one was a friend of mine who is a photographer, and so they wanted to do a photo shoot. So I don't often like bring anyone else in. So it's all me. I just usually I have 3 different ring lights, and I have a couple backgrounds and things like that. And then I have just the tripod and a remote. So I just use a clicker for all the photos and everything. All the video editing I do myself just in iMovie or like,
You gotta get Adobe.
yeah, I'm just like, we'll figure something out. Like most of my
Or
stuff
actually
is
DaVinci. DaVinci is actually a cheaper version of Adobe that works very well, I've heard.
okay. I mean, like
But if it works what you're doing, fucking do it. I'm just, I mean,
yeah, I like most of my stuff is pretty like
simplistic.
simplistic. Yeah. Like I know some of the creators that I know, especially like the clip artists, like the ones who specifically do clips, like they're using like green screens, and they have like hypnotizing stuff going on because they do a lot of hypno.
Sounds like a Tool concert.
Oh, there's like so much stuff going on, and like they have all these transitions, and like I'm pretty like straight to camera type of stuff.
One day I'll get to that level. One day, maybe.
Yeah, one day, but today is not that day, my friend. I stick to what I know for this time, because again, like I'm a one woman show, so I'm doing all of this by myself. So I have to kind of like cut corners when I can, just to make it a little bit more simple for me. But yeah, so it's just me, and most of the time the lighting is like just natural lighting. I get pretty good lighting in my apartment, so I just do that. Sometimes I'll do like nighttime shoots, and I'll do like colored lighting and things like that. But yeah, it's all pretty much just me. So it's a lot. Like I actually, my goal for my job, I don't know if you've seen this, there's a show on Netflix called How to Build a Sex Room.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it yet. I saw it. You mentioned it on your Twitter. Yeah.
It's pretty good. And it's like inspired me to make a goal for myself to have an office or like a studio where I can actually set up a real like shooting space. So like I can get furniture that is specifically like a chaise longue or something like that. I can get like specific backgrounds and like accessories and things that are just for shooting, that aren't just like, here's me in my bed again, here's me on my chair in my smoking room. Like there's not like a lot of cool places in my condo for me to be able to shoot. So I would love to be able to have a space of my own to actually like build it up from the ground up and create a real space for myself. But
one of the things that you can invest in is like I know for photography they have like multiple rolls. They could do like a rolling pin down, and like every I think 10 feet is like a new background. Maybe that's something you can invest in.
I have it on my Amazon wish list, so I'm hoping that someone buys it for me.
Shout it out. How can people buy it for you?
I have a few photography things. I have some new like photography lights and like different like those like light reflectors and things like that I have on there.
Those are a pain in the ass to set up. I don't even think you need those, to be honest. Like legit.
We'll
you
see
even
what
need like
happens.
a special frame from them. I don't think you need a reflector.
All right. Well,
And
good.
that's just my professional opinion. I mean, like there's
no,
such
that's great. That's great to know.
Like if with what you're doing, you probably want to do more spotlights or like natural lighting just to get that shadow effect, if you will. Reflectors, like fuck them.
There.
Yeah. All right. So Willow, we're gonna wrap it up. I know you have to go back to work at 10:30 in the evening.
Yep.
So my last question to you is that, like, with everything we've talked about, with your experience being so independent and everything, if there is anyone that might be listening thinking about like, how do I chase my dreams? How do I do what I want to do without sacrificing, my mental health? What kind of encouragement can you like maybe give to someone that might be like wanting to maybe do what you want to do, or is like thinking of going on the path of art, of being an artist, and like just needing that extra little push to take that leap?
Yeah. I mean, I waited like 9 months to be doing better than I was with sex work than I did at my job. So I definitely was like doing the two of them for a long time so that I had that buffer and like felt comfortable. So I definitely think like working on your passion as much as you can while you have that backup, just so that, you're not in the deep end struggling to like make ends meet, is really important. As much as it sucks to be like, but I want to do just the thing that I'm doing now. Like you're going to be pretty happy with yourself when you've, taken some time to establish yourself as whether it's an artist or like a sex worker or, an athlete or whatever it is, whether it's like even opening your own business, who knows, to be able to kind of work on that as much as you can as like a side gig so that you can have that support and like foundation
and build that confidence maybe to get to that.
100%. Like if I had been like, oh, I'm just going to quit my job and just like try OnlyFans and see how it goes, I would have probably failed within like 3 weeks, because I would have been like, I don't have enough money. What am I going to do? Oh my God. And because like, it's rare that people make a shit ton of money on that, in general, but also especially when they're first starting, especially if they don't have a strong social media following. So like, if I was to say for sex work specifically, and specifically for content creators, social media is so important. And so I would definitely, work on building up your social media presence before I would actually start promoting your OnlyFans or Loyal Fans or Fansly or whatever platform you're using. Because most of those sites don't have databases of content creators. And so they are, the only way to be found is through third-party apps. So I don't know if that's like necessarily motivational.
No, but it will help them get instead of like just diving deep end, like you took the what's it, not the smart approach or the realistic approach, like dipping your toes in, then your feet in, and your knees and ankles. Like you didn't just like rush into it. You wanted to make it a calculated
risk is a good
Let's
one.
go with that. That's a way. I'm glad we got B on the same page. Like, what I wanted to say, and you just got to the finish there.
Yeah.
Now, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is the time where you get to plug all your stuff, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So my main website is willowraven.online. So you have links to all of my social media, my PayPal, my OnlyFans, my loyal fans, everything on there. But I am just onlyfans.com/willowraven, loyalfans.com/willowraven. Twitter, you can find me at _willowraven. And then TikTok and Instagram is __willowraven, because I got banned on both and needed to create new accounts.
And so one last question. Where did the name Willow Raven come from?
So I really love Taylor Swift, and she has a song called Willow, and I just thought it sounded like a cool name. And then one of my friends was a dominatrix, and her name was Raven. So I took the name from that, so that we both had the name Raven in our names.
Cool. I can't. Thank you so much. I'm so happy for you, what you're doing. I think what you're doing is so cool, and I hope to one day be able to spot your hairdo at a local wrestling show one day in the near future. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Willow. I thought it was great. I think she's really cool young lady, and I hope nothing but the success and happiness for her. If you want to follow her on Twitter, it's _WillowRaven, and her IG is __Willow Raven on Instagram. And obviously you can check out Willow Raven online or her OnlyFans and Loyal Fans accounts as well, which will all be on the video version on the YouTube version of the podcast, as well as it'll be listed in the description as well. So do yourself a favor, check out a very funny and charismatic wrestling fan, but also a very funny and charismatic sex worker who I had the utmost pleasure of interviewing today. So that's it for me now. We'll be back with you soon with hopefully another episode down the line. Cheers.